Vincent van Gogh. Oh, this man. What a fascinating fixture of modern culture. There is a lot to discuss about Van Gogh, from his incredibly interesting painting style, to the fact he only started painting when he was 27, to his incredibly tortured yet iconic persona, and the rich cultural legacy he has left even to this day. His works of art were completely unappreciated at the time, but have grown tremendously in recognition and popularity since. Today, Van Gogh is an exceedingly famous household name, commanding respect and adoration across the globe. Part of what makes Van Gogh such a common staple of modern culture is the mystique surrounding him. Commonly described as a tortured soul, Van Gogh's enigmatic character is paradoxically something we should know a great deal about due to his frequent letters, which he sent 800 of, and most of which are widely available in museums and the internet. Yet his peculiar behaviour, his most infamous of which is cutting off his own ear before delivering it to a prostitute in a brothel, is still an object of intense scrutiny today due to much of its indecipherable nature. There has always been a kind of fascination surrounding characters such as Van Gogh in modern culture. Those who are clearly great artists yet suffered great tragedy seem to be permanent fixtures in the public consciousness. Yet unlike Freddie Mercury, Van Gogh considered himself a failure, selling one painting in his lifetime out of the 900 he painted. Only now is his creative genius so widely recognised. I do wonder about Vincent van Gogh. How crushing must a life of failure like his be that his final words were, "The sadness will last forever." How cruelly ironic is it that his success came only after death? How proud would he have been to know his work when recognised? How might his final words have changed? The great tragedy of Van Gogh is that his great sadness may not have lasted forever. Perhaps things would have been different if his creative genius was recognised sooner. But what I want to talk about today is video games, not some boring artistic and philosophical shit. One of the things that interests me most about Vincent van Gogh is his art that was never recovered. Some of Van Gogh's earliest works were destroyed by him because they didn't meet his expectations. Some were destroyed in fires, and some were again destroyed by him because they were painted over. Running on such little money, Vincent van Gogh had to reuse canvases, painting over what would now today be priceless works of art. So who knows what modern masterpieces might earn in his current place. I'm fascinated by the idea that some of his art is lost forever, and equally, some of it is there, but just completely inaccessible to modern audiences. But to take this discussion further, we must change tack. Now we're going to talk about what some may call the modern stone, the underground gem known as Fortnite. Over the past few years, Fortnite has been undergoing something of a transformation, or rather, multiple frequent transformations. Now, full disclosure, my experience with Fortnite consisted of 5 hours playing with friends, the occasional 360 no-scope montage, and a lot of memes. A lot of memes. But every now and then I see the occasional new trailer or MLG compilation, and even I have to do a double take at the amount of insane shit that added into the game. Fortnite is so wacky and so very different from its original conception. Some may ask, is Fortnite 2023 even the same game as Fortnite 2019? How much can something change before it's no longer the same thing? Does any change mean something different, or is it a certain amount of change that's required? This is starting to sound like a thesis shit debate, so we're going to end that here. But personally, this has made me wonder if perhaps I missed out by not really playing Fortnite during its heyday back in 2019. The original Fortnite is completely inaccessible now. For better or worse, Epic Games have been repainting the same canvas, just like Vincent van Gogh. The Fortnite that the world knew in 2019 is gone. Alright, I can't talk about Fortnite unironically for any longer, but it is undeniable that as it currently stands, you can't really go back and play the original Fortnite. It's vanished, and it's not alone. Live service games have definitely had their peak, and their market is currently crashing and burning, but they have been an undoubtedly influential force in the game industry. So when all live service games are rendered unplayable in the next 10 years, what are we going to tell our kids, grandkids, dogs, cats? Are we going to show them those clips of pro MLG gaming 360 no-scoping videos in order to recount the glory days? Because that may be all that's left of these live service games. And yet I would say that live service games are far from the gaming industry's biggest issue of preservation. 87%. Yes, I'm sure that you've seen this number thrown around a lot recently. That is the percentage I got on my most recent exam. Yeah, I just want to put that out there. I'm pretty proud. and 87 is also the percentage of games that are no longer commercially available according to the study by Video Game Archive. But my exam results are much more important. Now only 13% of which is ideal to perform now. But what's happening with video games? Where are they going? Well, nowhere. They're being left behind. Countless games are stuck in the past, unplayable on modern platforms. As someone on the younger side, there are literally dozens of games that I'd love to play, but just aren't commercially available. Mario Galaxy, Twilight Princess, the Metroid Prime trilogy, and countless others. And many of these games weren't even released that long ago. The recent abandonment of the Wii U and 3DS eShops by Nintendo is an example of such. Now you may have noticed that all of the titles I just mentioned are Nintendo related. And while this is partly because of my bias towards them, it's also because Nintendo is perhaps one of the biggest culprits of this. Now back in the day, Nintendo was actually pretty good with backwards compatibility. I wouldn't know, my first console was a Wii, but all the elderly, old millennials have told me stories and fables of the glorious second slot on the DS. Well, wake up call everyone, that was 2 decades ago. Feeling old yet? Nintendo's recent moves in the preservation space have been heavily anti-preservation. The Switch has zero backwards compatibility, and the select few titles Nintendo brings forward to the Switch have robbed me of my kiddies. Nintendo's legacy is long and rich, or so I've been told. Again, many a millennial has regaled me with stories of a Sea of Thieves ripoff, Terror Simulator, and something about a very flat man. Has anyone seen him? Oh wait, hang on, let me flip around. Now I've never played one of the original Formula Paper Marios, but when I started playing Origami King for the first time, I was struck with this vision. Jesus Christ, no wonder people want the old Paper Mario games back. And even someone like me, who has never been truly violent in my life, felt the urge to pull up penguins of Madagascar against the people who made this game.
Is she dead? No.
The issue is that these games look great, I just can't play them. There are only a smattering of legacy titles available via the Nintendo Switch Online, and yeah, that's it. Yep, Nintendo's remasters and remakes, and then the same. There's only 2 ways to play legacy Nintendo games. Only ones. Nintendo's bloody first executions, first for the Wii eShop in 2019, Mario in 2021, and now the Wii U and 3DS libraries in 2023, set a scary French-esque trend. And trust me, the French are fucking terrifying. They eat snails. Oh, and also very racist. Nintendo have previously shown that they don't want you playing their old games. They want you to remember them for nostalgia purposes, but they've made dismal attempts to get their legacy represented. They do seem to be making much stronger efforts now, with ports of Pikmin, Metroid, and Paper Mario maybe demonstrating a changing mindset. But this could also just be indicative of Nintendo scraping the bottom of the barrel as the Switch runs on its last legs. Microsoft and Sony usually offer better support in this area, but here's the thing. All 3 of their mediocre efforts combined preserve a tiny fraction of the entire medium of games. There are thousands more out there, even in this young medium, that no one in recent memory has even heard of. And thanks to the Video Game History Foundation, we have a percentage. 87% of games released before 2010 are no longer commercially available to the public. In so many ways, it feels like video games are defined by barriers. For one, gaming as a whole has many barriers to new players. Video game literacy, excessive prices, needing dedicated equipment. Yet there are just as many unique barriers within gaming that really aren't as prevalent in any other medium. Exclusivity to consoles or PC, accessibility to people with disabilities, even just difficulty, and now time. If you weren't around when these games were coming out, bad luck, because 87% of them are unavailable to you now. To get a little bit anecdotal, the amount of video games I've played is far smaller than the amount I know about. Through YouTube, people have told me about so many of their favourite games and series from before I was even born. I've learned about Pikmin, about Banjo-Kazooie, about Halo, about the Soul series, about Pokemon. So many landmark, historical, legendary games and series. It was hard to play so many of them for so many reasons. I have a Switch. Exclusivity between consoles means that I don't even have access to tons of current gen games. I have a laptop, but I've never bought a full PC because Yeah, expensive. So that's also a significant amount of games that are inaccessible to me. And that's only taking into consideration hardware. Video games are pricey, man. For me, piracy has often been not only the best option, but the only option. My very first Legend of Zelda game was the Minish Cap, played on my school laptop, pirated and emulated using Visual Boy Advance before I had a game console. Minish Cap is where I traced my Zelda love back to. What got me started on perhaps my favourite series ever, perhaps even where I trace the love of gaming back to. None of that would have been possible without piracy. None of that would have been possible without people and communities who cared enough to make this available to people like me. Classic games have so many barriers to access that they start to resemble hospitals in America, and thus the pirates of the internet are my Barack Obama. And so I'd like to say thank you to the people behind Visual Boy Advance and the people who made ROMs of the Minish Cap available. Thank you. This story is not unique. There are so many examples of passionate communities picking up the slack of companies. There are so many people who have gotten into various media or been able to continue experiencing various media thanks to these efforts. Throughout this essay, all the games I've mentioned have been related to this. The original map of Fortnite has been preserved through Reboot Royale. Closed live service games like Club Penguin have been run by fans. Smash Melee is still alive and kicking through community tournaments. Mods for Skyrim keep it going strong, and dozens of commercially unavailable Nintendo titles are available for people to play through piracy. I don't really have a grand conclusion today because here's the thing, I don't know what I'm missing. I've only been able to see what was shown to me, some of that by the companies, but mostly by people in the gaming community, passionate about their favourite classic games. But if my tastes are built upon only what other people have remembered and chosen to show to the world, how do I know that there's not more out there? I'm worried that the history of video games is disappearing. Maybe there are already some culturally significant games out there that nobody remembers. Maybe there's some great games out there that I'll never know about. What if this keeps going, and by the time I'm 50, no one knows about any of these games? Will today's modern games also disappear into the 87%? Chances are that if you're born at the same time as me, or beyond, you'll never even know what games are disappearing, or you'll never even care. Yet, seeing what people have done sort of reassures me. Presumably, these people are passionate about the best parts of gaming, right? The parts they've chosen to show around. I think that'll keep going. I mean, we've seen on YouTube that gaming has only gotten more and more popular. Even if corporate lobbying continues to prevent libraries, and companies continue to have pretty mediocre conservation efforts, at least the community will ensure that the important ones aren't forgotten.